So I'd like to invite to the stage another person from Oasis, which is, I didn't manage to say his name, so you're going to shout it now. Matej. Welcome. And we're going to have a panel about the frontiers in privacy and usability. I'm going to let you invite the other members. Yeah, I'll get you them in a second. Sterling, could you grab the mics? And the last thing that I have to say is don't forget that there is the Slido. And so during this panel, please ask the questions about the stuff that you're interested in. And then at the end, we'll have the opportunity to answer them. Thank you very much,
JJ. I think, yeah, everybody can hear me well. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. And I think we have an exciting panel guest here as well. So we're just going to kick it off. The theme is frontiers in privacy and usability. So we're going to be speaking about that. But before we dive in, a short round of introductions. So I'm Matej. I'm the BD manager at Oasis. But I'm going to let them speak more. I think they have more interesting stuff to say about them. So Mihai, you can start, and then we go down the line.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mihai. I'm working on the product side at Ocean Protocol. At my core, I'm a developer, so not that fond or familiar with panels, presentations, and so on and so forth. I think that's it.
Hello, I'm the creator of Firn Protocol, known online as Captain McAteer, and glad to be here.
And I'm Harry, and I've got lots of thoughts on, well, why are we doing this? And I hope I'm in the right place in terms of the reasons why. So, yeah.
Yeah, here you're all about the ideological aspects of privacy and why it's needed. And I like this. I like this a lot. So maybe we can just jump in and ask the question, why is privacy important? And also, at the same time, it's very hard to get adoption for it, right? So I think the crowd is getting bigger and bigger. We are having, I think this event is becoming bigger and bigger as well. So there is more interest in privacy. But if we look at the larger, let's say just crypto ecosystem, right? There's still not that much, interest in it. I can speak for myself. I'm BD, right? So I'm talking to projects and trying to convince them, that privacy is needed for the users, to make it more, let's say, to make them more self-aware, self-sovereign in terms of their data. But yeah, can you maybe share? Maybe Harry, I can start with you. Why do you think? I think you spoke about why it's important. Why is it so hard to get it into more mainstream adoption in crypto?
Yeah, so I don't know. One of the problems is it is really difficult to use. Like if you deep into the cryptography, if you're used to doing encryption everywhere, if you're used to thinking that way, then it sort of comes naturally to jump through all of these different hoops to do something that you know is secure. And it's almost like to do it any other way would be doing it the wrong way. It's like you have to strive to do something. And the problem is that everybody just follows down the easy path. So it's like you have to deliberately go out of your way to do all of this to begin with. And I think that's until it's the default for everybody, which it is on cell phones in most cases. Until we have this that's just there and you don't have to think about it, then you always have to make a decision. And everybody goes, is it a little bit more inconvenient for me? Yes, therefore I won't do it.
So you think it's going to be more on the developer side, integrating it, than users actually starting demanding it, maybe? Captain.
I'd hope so, maybe.
Yeah, so I'll gently push back on the idea that it's hard to get users. I think there have been a couple breakthrough cases like Tornado Cash, for example, which had massive amount of users. And what that shows is that if you can just kind of puncture through a certain UI barrier, then everything changes, right? Do you agree? And I remember when Tornado Cash first appeared on the scene, and it was really stunning, right? Because actually, compared to what other projects had attempted, it was simpler, more simple, more basic, right? Fixed amounts, right? Nobody had even tried this. Fixed amounts, only deposit and withdraw, no transfers or anything. And yet they won. How did they do it? Well, when I went to their website, I could just sense that this was a new caliber of graphic design, UI design. Just the JavaScript was so good that it was unlike anything that had come before it. And I think there is a lot to learn from that example. And maybe over time I can say what that is, but in short, the demand is there, the users are there. I think it's on us to build the stuff they want to use, and yeah.
But is that maybe on the, so you mentioned Tornado Cash, right? And that's a very specific use case, right? And of course, then the UI UX can also be very simple, right? But looking more broadly, let's say, us at Oasis, we're looking about, many applications, many application verticals that need privacy, from voting, potentially confidential NFTs, private trading. How to add privacy into those products, right? Because I guess the demand isn't there yet for those types of solutions to have the same amount of privacy as, let's say, Tornado Cash has, right? So with Tornado Cash, I guess we had like a very specific use case, right? But how to apply it to a more general landscape of dApps, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, like, first of all, payment is maybe one use case, but it's a very important one. Maybe the most important single use case. I mean, think about Bitcoin becoming massive and existing for years before Ethereum existed, and all you can do with Bitcoin is send it around, right? So let's not discount that use case as probably the one that we should solve first. It's kind of like a walk before you run kind of thing, right? I think there's a case, we shouldn't ignore the other stuff, but let's start small, do it really well, and start to make a difference there, and then maybe think about the other stuff. That's my personal philosophy. I mean, I'm a bit pragmatic in this kind of area where I want to build something that we can build today that's going to be a joy to use and that's going to convert users. And I think payment is a perfectly good place to start for that.
Yeah, Firn is working on that, right? So this is your core product. Yeah, that's good to hear. Maybe Mihai, you can share a little bit more about how you came about, Oasis, Sapphire, and your privacy needs, and adding it to a different type of application.
Yes. So I mostly agree with what my colleagues said. I don't think we have this mass adoption yet because, from my point of view, the UX is not yet there. And unfortunately, people want apps that are easy to use, little friction as possible. And even if they sort of understand that they need privacy, because in various aspects of our lives, we kind of miss it. For example, if your phone leaks or email leaks, then you get, I don't know how many spams, voice calls with spam, with anything. So even that's like a super basic. Imagine if you could do that in a private matter, right? It's super simple, but we don't really have that, right? And I think once the technology gets to that point where the user doesn't even know that they have this feature, we still have a bit of a way to go, and we need to work hard to get there. Going back to the question that you asked, how we got to Oasis, well, simple. After multiple tech spikes and researches, we realized that your technology was easy to implement, and it was transparent for the end user. It just brought us the features without the user actually knowing or having an extra layer of friction. So
And for you, as I understood, it was crucial to have that privacy on chain, right? So to keep the decentralized nature of it.
Because sure, we could have made it centralized, but then we wouldn't have brought anything new.
And new to the market, yeah, for sure. So going off of what you said, we have specific use cases as, let's say, Firn, where there is, let's say, demand, and you can go off user demand. But I guess to simplify the experience for the end users in a more broad category, right? I guess there's still the barrier where we need to break through is with the devs, right? So we need to make it simple enough for the devs to implement it in a way that that it can be the same UX for the user while they're keeping their privacy, right? So because one of the topics I wanted to touch on was exactly that. So what's the main blocker, right? Is it the devs? Is it the user demand? User demand is the tech. What you guys say? Is it the tech's not there? The developers are not caring about it. The users are not caring about it. What's the key one blocker? Anybody here?
I'd possibly say that a lot of people could go and do this, right? But they don't because they're like self-censoring what they're going to develop, or like if you want to make the simplest private wallet ever, you don't need to record any history. So if you add history, that's another feature that you have to develop. Then you have to decide, well, how do I sync the history? Do I have to add a compliance tool? Do I have to KYC my users? And sometimes if you're looking at like the simplest thing, just don't do all of this extra stuff. And that just complicates it massively. But people feel they're obliged to do all of this extra stuff. And compliance is one of those. Or am I allowed to open source this? Am I allowed to run it on mainnet? Do we have to set up a DAO? It turns it from being a really simple, very straightforward application and being something that you're having like existential moral dilemmas about, like, am I now on a list because I've developed this? And instead of like, let's just do it. Let's look at these super simple little tools that we can make that we can build stuff out of without having to think or overthink these things.
Maybe when you touch on compliance, maybe Captain, you can share here. Do you think crypto projects should be very concerned about being compliant in any aspects, or if you are compliant with everything, are you actually building something new? How are you looking at this? Because you're handling, you're more in the payments side. Oh, sorry, I love the question for you there.
Yeah, not the most pleasant thing to talk about, but first of all. Firn, we at Firn are very principled and value privacy in itself. There may be a world down the line if we get big enough where we have to start looking at this. And I guess I don't really want North Korea to use Firn. I don't know. I don't know if I want to take a position really on that, but I guess I'm not wild about it. Regarding compliance, I will say one thing, which is that there are kind of various approaches. One, which has got some traction, is this kind of proof of innocence thing. I'm sort of against this for the very practical reason that it unreasonably puts the burden on the user to specify which accounts are going to be dissociated. I don't think that's really realistic. So maybe there's something where that would be baked in or sort of come for free or something like that. But I don't really want to take a stance on what Firn would do. Right now, well, I'll go out and say it. Right now, we don't have compliance measures, so don't misuse Firn. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
No, it's not in relation to Firm. You can speak more broadly in terms of should crypto projects, be too concerned about this. I know it's at some level when you grow, you potentially can get contacted by certain agencies, right? But if you're trying to be compliant in every aspect, or is the protocol then any different than anything that's already out there in, let's say, more traditional space, right?
Well, yeah, I think even if you did implement some kind of compliance, it would still be better than, say, using an exchange to store your funds, or even just standard checking account. I mean, there will still be differences in that case.
Okay.
Obviously, it's not the same as having no compliance at all, but there are always going to be gradations with this kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there
Yeah.
with Firn. It was just more like a broader question.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch on, since we have here Ocean as well, that just joined the ASI Alliance, and AI is becoming a big thing, right? And big tech, right? It's kind of owning the market right now in AI. And if we want to kind of merge crypto and AI, right? Then I think we kind of need some privacy there as well, right? If you want like a true decentralized AI. Maybe, Mihai, you can share there, how you see the future of these decentralized AI come about, if we want to have like truly decentralized, trustless, AI that can handle, private data in this matter.
Yes. Honestly, I think we have some road until we get there. Regarding ASI, I can't really talk in everybody's name for now. I can just tell you that from Ocean's perspective, we constantly have been focusing on privacy. The example, working with you guys, our C2D component that is our tagline, privacy preserving compute. So it's in the name. Yeah. And actually this year we are focusing, the second version of C2D is actually focusing on bringing actual machine learning models and more complex algorithms with privacy. So we do actually strive to get there.
So this is going to be one of the major components.
Yes.
If we want to.
From Ocean's perspective, yes, we are definitely focusing on this.
Any thoughts from you guys on AI coming into the space? Here
Yeah, I want, like, it's almost there, like full confidential AI is almost there, but I'm not sure I necessarily want a lot of this. So like, one of the big problems is like, when's the GPT model going to leak? When can I run this on my own hardware? If they lock it forever in this like confidential enclave that we can never get this, even though my data is safe when I'm, giving it to them, which at the moment it's not. They say they don't log it if you have the Teams account, but I don't trust them because you can't verify the infrastructure, right? What if the bad side is, what if this tech gets locked out of the public domain forever, And so I'm not sure that's a response to that, really, but that's the question.
Can kind of answer to you. In the initial thought designs, we're not trying to keep the actual model private, but the creation of the model. So all the data collection, the training, that is the focus. So that should be private. And this way, you can train more models and easier. But the actual model, then that doesn't necessarily need to be private.
That makes sense.
So basically, you can use data from everybody. That data is private. And you have a model that everybody can benefit. And at the end of the day, that model can be open source.
Or will it be open source, though? Like, if we're trying to do privacy for the right reasons, and you have to take a stand, and you have to do it completely private, or as private as you possibly can, then surely we should also have a stand with AI as well, and say the models must be open, just as encryption must not have a backdoor. Is that equivalent for AI?
Honestly, I think while in the previous year or years, AI has blown a lot, I think we are still learning a lot. And this scene is evolving constantly, and honestly, you might be perfectly right. But depending on how these models evolve, maybe we want to keep them private. Honestly, I do not have a definitive answer for that.
Yeah, that would be my question, because if all the models are transparent, like if you're building out a company and your competitive edge is the model itself, but you still want to, okay, then maybe it's not fully decentralized, but you still want to train it on data, that's out there that users can selectively disclose with your model, right? I guess there are some cases where you potentially want that model to be private, right?
Oh yeah, like my diaries. I don't want the model of my diaries to be out there. Although if you want to buy it in
You
private,
made a model?
Sorry?
You made a model of your diaries?
No, you can do. Yeah.
Your model, the model of your diaries, or your diaries?
I
The
want
data.
both. I don't want you to be able to say what was Harry's Thursday like, and it gives you an imaginary Thursday in the life of Harry, right?
But at the end of the day, wouldn't be about options? Why not have the option of both? So for example, that model can be private. You can own it, host it, whatever, only you have access to it. Or you can have other models that everybody can benefit. And they are decentralized, crowdsourced, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see it from the, let's say, crypto is very focused on trading, right? DeFi is still one of the main use cases, probably where the majority of the funds, get the majority of volume comes, right? And with Predictor, you see that as well, right? So there are, I guess, a lot of use cases where you can have, certain models, that are profitable for you, that you potentially would want to share with someone to be able to, so they are able to purchase it, right? But if you share it what the model is, then you lose your edge, right? So in that sense, that way your model should stay private, but at the same time, they can verify let's say how profitable it is and gain from it, right? So I guess there is a little bit of a spectrum here. What should be public, what should be private in terms of AI models as well. I'm not sure how we're doing on time. Okay, then we need to go to closing thought. Thanks. Yeah, I didn't see any time here. Yeah, so I guess 3 minutes, yeah. Thanks for the touch on AI. Any last thoughts on, what do you think privacy will be in next, let's say, 6 months to a year, and then what's kind of the 5-year goal, maybe, anything like that? Or any last comment just on a personal level? We can start with you, Harry, and go back.
I do think that whenever you end up with like privacy alliances or people coming together, or you ask for legal advice on this stuff, it always ends up going towards like the conservative, let's better be careful, and it's almost like to do what must be correct. You have to be very focused, and you can't get sucked into this compromise sort of situation. And I think that applies to lots and lots of different things. And the problem is doing it. It takes effort in its own right to say I'm going to do it this way, rather than doing it the way everybody else is.
So do it and ask questions later, something like that.
Sorry?
Do it now and ask questions later.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Captain?
Yeah, so, I'm a pretty down-to-earth guy. I think the right way to see this is to just build things that are real, that are practical, make incremental steps, always meet the users where they are, and build great products. So that's my philosophy. That's what we've done with Firn. And, this is something that I guess we can improve by daily work and step-by-step improvements. And
that should bring us to more mainstream adoption of the...
I think so. Yeah.
Thanks. Mihai?
I think its adoption is inevitable because there are a lot of eyes on it, a lot more developers that are actually focusing on it, and sooner or later will just be there. It's just going to be in the apps. You're not going to even think about it. It's just going to be there, period. Like multiple other technologies that you're just using them without even knowing. But you're not conscious
about it.
Thank you.
I guess that's it. Let's see what Slido says. on this? Oh, we have a few questions. First one, do you have already successfully trained larger AI models inside Ruffle with, this is for Oasis. Harry, I think we can both say no to this one.
Yes, this is definitely in the works at the moment. We do have some interesting ways of tackling like confidential AI, but I do think it takes a bit of time to get it right and to roll this out to people. So we're looking at it, but not now is the answer, I guess.
Is privacy in payments unresolved, Captain?
I'll go on a limb and say no, it is resolved. You can go to firn.cash and see for yourself.
Loving it. How Oasis differs from secret network? Different network, yes, but something else.
We do EVM.
Simple as that. Next one. More about the partnership with Riot Chain. I think it's better if you read up on the blog post there than if I go into details here on the stage. Next one. Agencies and regulators are looking for meaningful control through compliance or just paper compliance to their arbitrary rules.
I'm a glad mathematician and cryptographer, not a lawyer or regulator. So I'll just happily defer.
Thank you, Captain. Do you think there's a world where privacy will have as easy of UX as non-privacy apps? I think we answered that yeah, there's a little bit of work to be done on that side, but we're going towards that it would be seamless for the users and the devs as well. So UX and DevX are very important. I think the most important question just popped up now. Where can I use the model for Harry's diary?
Well, I'm not sure, but if you are a GPT employee and you have access to a torrent client, there are lots of beautiful things you can do with that combination.
And the last one, what's the one thing we should do better cooperate across the privacy space? I think conferences like this are great for collaboration where I think privacy-aligned projects can meet up, can share thoughts, and push the space forward. I took the liberty of answering that, so yeah.
I might add... I'll add one more thing though, which is there's lots of different privacy projects, and all of them have the different strengths and weaknesses. And one of the big problems is that there isn't much liquidity between these privacy coins. So I think if there's one thing that we can do is to make it possible to send coins, privacy coins, from one chain to another. Without ever having to get out of the privacy coin, send it over a bridge, put it back into another privacy coin, do that. And if we can find ways of like being more interoperable or doing swaps or something like that, then that's better for the entire anonymity pool, and it's better for all of the coins rather than these little niches here and there. And that's one of the big problems I've seen is if you're trying to use this on a day-to-day basis, we need intent solving for privacy or something like that of, just here's all my money, make it private, and then do stuff with the private money, and it will be able to do it much better than I can, clicking buttons.
Yeah, I mean, just to continue the practical bent here, right? So Firn is on Ethereum. It's also on a couple Ethereum L2s. So if you have ETH, okay, that many people do, then it's kind of right there. You don't need to change chains or anything like that. Back to the case study of Tornado, I think that's one reason they were so wildly successful was that the idea of sort of plugging privacy into ETH was totally new, right? There was Zcash and Monero and these standalone coins, which were extremely hard to acquire. You had to go through some, non-US exchange and things like that to even get Monero. And all of a sudden, there was a way to take ETH, just any old ETH, and get privacy with it. That, I think, was a massive change in ease of use and sort of utility, right? Because now, exchanges can delist Monero, but they can't just delist ETH, right? I mean, I guess they can try to put you on a list or something like that, but that to me is a major facilitator for use.
I'd say like getting cut off from an exchange for using Zcash for the sole reason that it exists was like a point of frustration for me. Like, well, why is it even listed on there if you don't allow me to tinker with ZK and shielded transactions? It's, but at least with on-chain, there's no way of censoring, or you can censor that if you end up with too many nodes in the wrong country, right? So maybe we need to look at more resilience and anti-censorship.
But that's kind of my point, right? Is that like, if your privacy deals with Ether and not with some other coin, then that completely shuts off a vector for exchanges to obstruct access, right?
But they still know you're using a privacy system. They know that, oh, this money came out.
They know
of a
you have the dirty
system.
Ether, I think that was the case with Tornado Cash as well, right? Where basically Chainalysis, and the likes can flag, how tainted your Bitcoin or your ETH is, right? And that can be problematic as well from a centralized exchange point of view, I guess.
Fair enough, but at least you can acquire it in the first place, right? And if we both have ETH already, right, then we can use Firn to pay each other versus if we don't have, right, if our only option is to pay in Monero and then we have to get Monero somehow, right? But yeah, point taken that I guess if you try to go back to the exchange, then maybe there would be trouble there.
Yeah, then you're on the let's check your funds screen for a little bit. No, but good point, good point. So basically wrapping the existing assets that are transparent in a private manner. But I think what the point that Harry wanted to make was when we were speaking to a project that was dealing with crypto invoicing, and how to do private payments there, right? Private invoices. They needed to move the whole thing to Sapphire in order to have that privacy, right? Because you can't just have the payment be routed through there, because you can obviously see then going in.
I guess you could have a pay with Firn button and it just auto wraps your stuff.
You don't have to go in and out to use Firn to pay. You can transfer between Firn users. So yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So
Do we argue enough, or?
Yeah, you've done great.
We have a couple of questions.
We have a couple extra.
What does it mean by, is it killed by governance? I do kind of get the sentiment there of like at some point somebody stands up and tries to be the sensible person in the room and says like, maybe we should do governance. And I think like, I'm not sure if
Is it mean governance or government?
Yeah, is it governance or government?
It could be lost in translation. But doing the infamous duck and cover back in the nuclear war days, right? I don't see that working when there's mainstream adoption. And I actually like the last question as well. What is to prevent you or from ending up?
Yeah, they're all up there.
Right? So it's, when we see mainstream, I also see the hammer growing in size.
Yeah, that's why it's open source, right? And I don't know. How do we need like the sacrificial person, the hobo off the street that just happens to release all my software? It
would be nice if I could see these questions without doing this. But so
the second one, yeah.
What does Firn do different from Tornado Cash? I mean, is that in terms of the cryptography, which haven't talked about but is interesting, or the features, or is this a compliance-specific question? I guess maybe the person doesn't want to de-anonymize themselves. Many things, but regarding,
The question was more about like the second question within the question, like
meaning the features.
No, ending up where Tornado Cash ended up.
Oh. Well, I didn't expect so many regulatory questions, but yeah. See you in a year. No, but like, first of all, if we get you know, if we get big enough that this becomes a risk, then I'll find some very smart legal minds to maybe advise me. But there are some proof of innocence-like things we can do. Actually, we have Amin here. You know, Firn in principle could do something like this, but actually arguably in a bit more native way. I think, you know, Firn transactions sort of contain ring signatures. So what you can do is sort of exclude at the protocol level or at the client level, right? So I can tell my client to only sample rings that don't contain those accounts, or, you know, maybe we or somebody marks certain accounts as being sort of off limits to any ring. I guess the benefit of doing this is that instead of presenting a separate cryptographic proof of innocence, I can just point on chain and say, look, my ring didn't intersect that thing. So the proof of innocence is kind of baked in a native way. This is a nice feature that could, in principle, be done. We don't do this now. But that is at least in the deck of cards that we could play.
So I just need to dust all the accounts and to keep everything fair and on the level to prevent the compliance from working.
Well, okay. So if
we can't, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so can't go too in depth.
But it just got spicy. No, but yeah, I just want to add. I think the questions around compliance, maybe you know, people are wondering because they want to use it and just want to make sure.
It's a fair point.
It's good.
Look, I love privacy. I love liberty. I also want to be a positive force in the world, not a negative one. So, you know, I guess I would prefer it if Firn, if there was some way to make Firn only be used for good. Obviously, determining which is a weighty question. But look, my specialty is cryptography, not legal. So
that was all we needed.
Okay.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you, everyone, for joining here. Thank you guys for listening in.